Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's dive into history's raw, unfiltered edges. We're peeling back the layers of three worlds, gritty, human, and hauntingly real. No polished fairy tales here, just the sweat, struggle, and stubborn spark of people who lived through eras that would break most of us. We'll walk the muddy streets of ancient Rome, uncover the defiance of Hypatia of Alexandria, and unravel the enigma of the Lady of Cow in ancient Peru. Before we start, hit that like button if you're ready for a journey that's as brutal as it is beautiful, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's joining us from across the globe. Now, grab a drink, dim the lights, maybe crack a window for some fresh air, and let's step into the past together. Hypatia of Alexandria. Long before she was a symbol of reason in a world unraveling, Hypatia of Alexandria was just a girl with a knack for numbers and a hunger for truth. Born around 350 CE in Alexandria, Egypt, she grew up in a city that was both a beacon of knowledge and a cauldron of chaos. Her story isn't one of crowns or conquests, but of a woman who wielded intellect like a blade, cutting through dogma in a time when asking questions could get you killed. Hypatia's father, Theon, was a mathematician and astronomer, the last known member of Alexandria's fabled library. He raised her not as a daughter to be married off, but as a scholar to carry his torch. From childhood, she devoured texts, Plato, Euclid, Ptolemy, while other girls learned to weave or pray. By her teens, she was lecturing on mathematics, correcting her father's work, and debating philosophy with men twice her age. Alexandria was a crossroads of ideas, Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Christian, Jewish, pagan, but it was also a city on edge, where faith and reason were starting to clash like swords. By her 20s, Hypatia was a teacher, a philosopher, a mathematician, and an astronomer, running her own school in a city when knowledge was power, but also a target. Her lectures drew crowds, students, nobles, even Christians who admired her logic despite their bishops' frowns. She taught geometry, algebra, and the movements of the stars, using an astrolabe she helped perfect. She didn't just teach facts, she taught how to think, how to question, how to peel back the universe's layers and see its machinery. Her home was a salon of ideas, where pagans and Christians debated under her sharp gaze, and her voice, calm, precise, unyielding, cut through the noise. But Alexandria was changing. The Roman Empire was now Christian, and the old gods were being toppled. Temples were razed, books burned, and pagans like Hypatia were increasingly seen as threats. The city's bishop, Cyril, was a firebrand, preaching that Christianity must purge all traces of the old ways. Hypatia, a pagan who refused to convert, became a symbol of everything he despised. She wasn't just a scholar, she was a woman who dared to speak, to teach, to challenge, and that made her dangerous. Her influence wasn't just academic. She advised Restin, Alexandria's governor, a Christian who valued her counsel over the churches. This put her in Cyril's crosshairs. Rumors spread. Hypatia was a witch, a heretic, a seductress who bewitched men with her mind. In 415 CE, the tension broke. A mob of Christian zealots, egged on by Cyril's followers, ambushed her. They dragged her from her chariot, stripped her, and tore her apart with broken pottery and oyster shells. Her body was burned, her work scattered, her name nearly erased. But Hypatia didn't vanish. Her students preserved her teachings, her ideas echoing in later mathematicians and philosophers. She became a martyr for reason, a symbol of what's lost when fear triumphs over thought. Her death marked the fading of Alexandria's golden age, but her life? It was a defiant stand for truth in a world that wanted obedience. Tonight, when you look at the stars, think of Hypatia, charting their paths with nothing but a compass and a fearless mind. She didn't just live in Alexandria, she lit it up, and her light still burns. Hypatia of Alexandria, 350–415 CE. Long before she was a symbol of reason in a world unraveling, Hypatia of Alexandria was just a girl with a knack for numbers and a hunger for truth. Born around 350 CE in Alexandria, Egypt, she grew up in a city that was both a beacon of knowledge and a cauldron of chaos. Her story isn't one of crowns or conquests, but of a woman who wielded intellect like a blade, cutting through dogma in a time when asking questions could get you killed. Hypatia's father, Theon, was a mathematician and astronomer, the last known member of Alexandria's fabled library. He raised her not as a daughter to be married off, but as a scholar to carry his torch. From childhood, she devoured texts, Plato, Euclid, Ptolemy, while other girls learned to weave or pray. By her teens, she was lecturing on mathematics, correcting her father's work, and debating philosophy with men twice her age. Alexandria was a crossroads of ideas, Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Christian, Jewish, pagan, but it was also a city on edge, where faith and reason were starting to clash like swords. By her 20s, Hypatia was a teacher, a philosopher, a mathematician, and an astronomer, running her own school in a city where knowledge was power, but also a target. Her lectures drew crowds, students, nobles, even Christians who admired her logic despite their bishops' frowns. She taught geometry, algebra, and the movements of the stars, using an astrolabe she helped perfect. She didn't just teach facts, she taught how to think, how to question, how to peel back the universe's layers and see its machinery. Her home was a salon of ideas, where pagans and Christians debated under her sharp gaze, and her voice, calm, precise, unyielding, cut through the noise. But Alexandria was changing. The Roman Empire was now Christian, and the old gods were being toppled. Temples were razed, books burned, and pagans like Hypatia were increasingly seen as threats. The city's bishop, Cyril, was a firebrand, preaching that Christianity must purge all traces of the old ways. Hypatia, a pagan who refused to convert, became a symbol of everything he despised. She wasn't just a scholar, she was a woman who dared to speak, to teach, to challenge, and that made her dangerous. Her influence wasn't just academic. She advised Orestes, Alexandria's governor, a Christian who valued her counsel over the churches. This put her in Cyril's crosshairs. Rumors spread. Hypatia was a witch, a heretic, a seductress who bewitched men with her mind. In 415 CE, the tension broke. A mob of Christian zealots, egged on by Cyril's followers, ambushed her. They dragged her from her chariot, stripped her, and tore her apart with broken pottery and oyster shells. Her body was burned, her works scattered, her name nearly erased. But Hypatia didn't vanish. Her students preserved her teachings, her ideas echoing in later mathematicians and philosophers. She became a martyr for reason, a symbol of what's lost when fear triumphs over thought. Her death marked the fading of Alexandria's golden age, but her life, it was a defiant stand for truth in a world that wanted obedience. Tonight, when you look at the stars, think of Hypatia, charting their paths with nothing but a compass and a fearless mind. She didn't just live in Alexandria, she lit it up, and her light still burns. The Lady of Kau and Hokusai. The Lady of Kau, circa 400 CE. Deep in the sun-scorched deserts of northern Peru, where the Moche civilization once thrived, a tomb lay hidden for over 1,500 years. In 2006, archaeologists uncovered it at El Brujo, a ceremonial complex of adobe pyramids crumbling under the weight of time. Inside, they found something extraordinary. A woman, wrapped in layers of cotton and gold, her body adorned with tattoos and treasures. They called her the Lady of Kau, and her discovery rewrote what we thought we knew about power in the ancient Andes. The tomb was a time capsule, untouched by looters. Her body rested in a bundle of 26 layers of cloth, each woven with images of snakes and spiders, symbols of fertility and the underworld. Her arms bore tattoos of serpents, her skin preserved by the dry desert air. Around her were scepters, gold jewelry, and ceramic vessels, signs of a ruler or priestess. A young girl, likely a sacrificial companion, lay beside her, along with strangled remains of others, a grim reminder of the Moche's rituals. The Lady of Kau wasn't just buried, she was sent to the gods with reverence and blood. Who was she? The Moche left no written records, but her tomb speaks volumes. She was likely a high priestess or queen, ruling around 400 CE during the Moche's peak. Her scepters suggest authority, her tattoos a spiritual role. The Moche revered women as conduits to the divine, their bodies channels for cosmic balance. Her burial, rich with gold and ritual, places her among the elite, maybe even equal to the famed Lord of Sipan, another Moche ruler found nearby. Was she a warrior, a spiritual leader, or both? Her tomb's silence invites us to wonder. The artifacts tell a story of power and sacrifice. Gold nose rings, necklaces, and crowns gleamed in the torchlight when archaeologists opened her tomb. A wooden club wrapped in copper hints at authority or violence. Ceramic pots, painted with scenes of gods and battles, suggest she was part of a world where life and death danced closely. The Moche believed in blood offerings, human and animal, to appease their gods, and the Lady of Kau's tomb, with its sacrificed attendants, shows she was no stranger to that world. Her discovery challenges the idea that ancient power was always male. In Moche art, women are depicted as priestesses, warriors, even deities. The Lady of Kau, with her tattoos and scepters, was likely a bridge between the human and divine, a ruler who commanded both fear and awe. Her tomb wasn't just a grave, it was a portal, a sacred space where she transitioned from mortal to myth. Today, she lies in a museum in Peru, her treasures displayed under glass, her face reconstructed from her skull, a young woman, maybe in her 20s, staring back at us with quiet power. The Lady of Kau doesn't give us her name, but she gives us something greater, a glimpse into a world where women ruled, not in the shadows, but in the light of gold and blood. Katsushika Hokusai, 1760–1849. Before he was Hokusai, the artist whose waves and mountains would captivate the world, he was Katsushika Taro, born in 1760 in Edo, Japan, to a family of artisans. His life wasn't one of emperors or samurai, but of ink, woodblocks, and an obsession with capturing the fleeting beauty of the world. Hokusai didn't just create art, he redefined it, leaving a legacy that ripples across centuries. He grew up in a Japan ruled by shoguns, where artists were craftsmen, not celebrities. At 12, he was apprenticed to a woodblock printer, learning to carve delicate lines into cherry wood. By 18, he was studying under Katsukawa Shunsho, a master of ukiyo-e, the pictures of the floating world, that depicted actors, courtesans, and landscapes. Hokusai's early works were typical, portraits of kabuki stars, scenes of Edo's pleasure districts. But even then, his lines had a restless energy, a hint of the genius to come. Hokusai was a wanderer, not just in body, but in mind. He changed his name over 30 times, each shift marking a new phase of his art. He called himself the old man mad about drawing, and mad he was. Mad for mountains, waves, birds, ghosts, anything that could be etched into wood and paper. He lived poor, often moving to dodge creditors, his studio a mess of sketches and sake bottles. He married twice, fathered children, but his true love was art. I have been in love with painting.
So there you have it, a day in ancient Rome, a life of reason in Alexandria, a queen buried in Peru, and an artist who painted Japan's soul. These stories aren't just history, they're mirrors. The plebeian who carried Rome on their back, Hypatia who burned bright in a darkening world, the Lady of Kau who ruled in silence, and Hokusai who never stopped chasing beauty, they all remind us of the same truth. Life's hard, always has been, But humans are harder. They fought, they thought, they created, not because it was easy, but because it was theirs. Tonight, as you scroll through your phone or sip clean water, spare a thought for them. They didn't have our comforts, but they had fire. Fire to live, to question, to build, to paint. Their worlds were brutal, but their legacies are eternal. And maybe, just maybe, that's the spark we need to keep burning today. Next, we'll step into 3 worlds where survival wasn't just a goal, it was a daily fight. No knights in shining armor, no epic ballads, just real people clawing their way through life's grit. We'll walk the frozen paths of a Viking village in 900 CE, follow the rise of Murasaki Shikibu in Japan's Heian court, and uncover the mystery of the woman of Willendorf from 25,000 years ago. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're ready for some history that bites, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's joining us from around the world. Now, grab a blanket, maybe turn up the heat to fend off that Viking chill, and let's slip into the past together. A day in the life of a Viking thrall, 900 CE. Congratulations, you've just woken up in a Viking village, 900 CE, somewhere along the icy fjords of Scandinavia. You're a thrall, the lowest rung on the Norse social ladder, a slave, captured in a raid or born into bondage. The good news? You're alive in a world of warriors and sagas. The bad news? Your life belongs to someone else, and the cold is the least of your worries. Your bed is a pile of straw in a smoky longhouse, tucked in a corner near the goats. The straw's damp, crawling with lice, and smells like it's been there since Odin was a kid. Your blanket is a scrap of wool, thin as a promise, and it does nothing against the bone-deep chill seeping through the wooden walls. You wake to the clang of a metal pot and the growl of your master, a burly Viking named Bjorn who thinks shouting is a personality trait. The longhouse is one big room, humans, animals, and smoke all sharing the same air. The fire in the center spits embers, and the smell is a mix of sweat, fish, and something you hope isn't your own feet rotting in your boots. First up, you stumble outside to relieve yourself. No outhouse, no privacy, just a patch of frozen dirt behind the longhouse. You squat in the dark, praying the wind doesn't turn your business into an ice sculpture. The village is a maze of wooden huts, surrounded by snow and the distant roar of the sea. Waste gets tossed into a ditch or the fjord, where it joins fish bones and whatever else the Vikings didn't eat. Hygiene? A quick splash of icy water from a bucket, if you're lucky. Most days, you just wipe your hands on your tunic and call it clean. Soap's for jarls, not thralls. Breakfast is a grim affair. You kneel by the fire, handed a bowl of scouse, a watery stew of barley, fish bones, and maybe a turnip if the harvest was kind. It's been simmering for days, and you're pretty sure a rat fell in last week. You chew slowly, avoiding the grittier bits, and pair it with a chunk of bread so hard it could knock out a raider. Water's scarce, and often frozen, so you sip ale, weak, sour, but safer than the stream where the village dumps its slop. Meat? That's for feasts, when the jarl slaughters a pig for Thor. As a thrall, you get the gristle, if anything. Kids eat the same slop, their small hands clutching bowls as they shiver by the fire. Time to dress, if you can call it that. Your outfit is a single tunic of coarse wool, patched with whatever scraps you could find. It's stiff with dirt, smells like a wet dog, and itches like a curse from Loki. No underwear, no socks, just a pair of leather shoes so worn they're basically foot-shaped bags. Your skin's a war zone. Flea bites, scabs, and a rash you're too scared to name. Bathing's a myth. The nearest river's half frozen, and nobody's wasting firewood to heat water for a thrall. You scratch your scalp, dislodging a louse or two, and move on. Everyone's itchy. Jarls, warriors, even the pigs. It's just life. Work is where the day really kicks you in the teeth. As a thrall, you do whatever Bjorn demands. chopping wood, mucking out the animal pens, or hauling water from the fjord until your arms scream. The tools are crude: a dull axe, a wooden bucket, a shovel that's more splinters than metal. You work from dawn to dusk, no breaks, no complaints. If you're a woman, you're also spinning wool, milking goats, and dodging Bjorn's wife, who thinks you're eyeing her husband. Kids as young as 5 help out, carrying sticks or feeding chickens. No school, no childhood, just labor and the hope you don't freeze solid before nightfall. The weather's a constant enemy. Winter's brutal, with snow piling up to your knees and winds that cut like a sayax. The longhouse leaks, the fire's never warm enough, and your fingers go numb by noon. Summer's better, but not much. Midges swarm, the sun bakes your skin, and the work never stops. Rain turns the village into a mud pit, and your shoes, if you still have them, dissolve into sludge. Frostbite, heat stroke, or a slip on icy rocks, it's all just another day. Religion's your shadow. The gods, Odin, Thor, Freya, loom over everything. You mutter prayers while you work, hoping Thor doesn't smite you for dropping a log. Sacrifices happen regularly. A goat's throat slit for a good harvest, or worse, a human if the gods are really angry. As a thrall, you're not invited to the rituals, but you clean up the blood afterward. Superstitions everywhere. A strange bird means bad luck. A storm means the gods are fighting. You don't question it. You just pray you're not the next offering. Death's always...
Murasaki Shikibu, c. 973 to 1014 CE. Before she was Murasaki Shikibu, the woman who wrote the world's first novel, she was just a girl named Fujiwara no Kaoruko, born around 973 CE in Kyoto, Japan, during the Heian period. Her story isn't one of swords or crowns, but of words, wit, and a quiet rebellion that changed literature forever. In a court of silk and secrets, Murasaki wove a tapestry of human emotion that still speaks to us 1,000 years later. She grew up in a world of elegance and intrigue, where aristocrats traded poems like currency, and women were expected to be seen, not heard. Her father, Fujiwara no Tamatoki, was a scholar and minor noble, educated but not powerful. Unlike most girls, Murasaki was taught Chinese, the language of men, literature, and power. She read voraciously, poetry, histories, Buddhist texts, while her peers learned calligraphy and courtly grace. By her teens, she was sharper than most men in the room, but in Heian, Japan, a woman's brain was decorative, not dangerous. At 20, she married a distant cousin, Fujiwara no Nobutake, a cheerful but unremarkable noble. She bore a daughter, but widowhood came quickly. Her husband died just 2 years later. Grief could have broken her, but Murasaki turned inward, pouring her thoughts into diaries and poems. Her writing caught the eye of the imperial court, and by her late 20s she was summoned to serve Empress Shoshi. The Heian court was a gilded cage, silk robes, incense-filled rooms, and constant scheming. Women like Murasaki were ladies-in-waiting, expected to write poetry, flirt discreetly, and stay out of politics. But Murasaki didn't just serve, she observed, and her pen became her weapon. In the quiet of her chambers, she began The Tale of Genji, a sprawling story of a prince navigating love, loss, and power. It wasn't just a story, it was a mirror of the court's beauty and flaws. Genji's world was hers, fragile, fleeting, full of passion and betrayal. She wrote in kana, the script used by women, turning a lesser language into art. Her characters weren't heroes or gods, but flawed humans, men who loved and lied, women who suffered and schemed. It was revolutionary, a novel before the word existed, blending prose, poetry, and raw emotion. The court was a minefield. Rival noble families, like the Fujiwara, vied for power, using marriages and gossip as weapons. Murasaki's writing was admired but dangerous, too honest, too revealing. She hid her sharpest thoughts in her diary, describing courtiers as shallow as a stream and mocking their endless posturing. She was devoutly Buddhist, yet her faith didn't blind her to the court's hypocrisy.
She walked a tightrope, charming the empress while dodging enemies who saw her intellect as a threat. Her life wasn't glamorous. She lived modestly, her quarters cramped, her health frail. She likely died in her 40s, possibly from illness or exhaustion, leaving Genji unfinished. But her words endured. Copied by hand, shared among nobles, her novels spread across Japan, shaping literature for centuries. It influenced poetry, theater, even modern manga. Murasaki didn't just write a story, she gave voice to the human heart, in a time when women's voices were barely whispers. Tonight, when you pick up a novel or write a line of your own, think of Murasaki, scratching Kana by lamplight, turning her world's beauty and pain into immortality. She didn't just live in the Heian court, she rewrote it, one word at a time.
So, there you have it. A Day in a Viking Village. A novel born in a silk court. A stone goddess from the Ice Age, and a woman who spoke truth to power. These stories aren't just history. They're proof of what humans can do when the world says stop. The thrall who endured, Murasaki who wrote, the woman of Willendorf who inspired, Sojourner who fought, they didn't just live through their times, they shaped them, with sweat, ink, stone, and voice. As you sit in your warm home, with choices they could only dream of, remember them. They didn't have freedom, comfort, or safety, but they had fire. They carved, wrote, spoke, and survived, not because it was easy, but because it was theirs. Let their stories light a spark in you, because if they could burn bright in their worlds, what's stopping us in ours? Next, we'll step into 3 worlds where life was a relentless test of grit and heart. No glossy legends or heroic ballads here, just real people fighting to survive, create, and leave a mark against all odds. We'll trudge through the dust of ancient Mesopotamia in 1800 BCE, trace the brilliance of Ibn Sina in medieval Persia, and unravel the mystery of the bog woman of Holdremos from 100 BCE Denmark. Before we start, smash that like button if you're ready for a journey that's as raw as it is unforgettable. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's joining us across the globe. Now, grab a warm drink, maybe light a candle for that ancient vibe, and let's walk into the past together.
A Day in the Life of a Mesopotamian Farmer, 1800 BCE. Congratulations, you've just woken up in ancient Mesopotamia, 1800 BCE, in a small village along the Euphrates River. You're a farmer, one of the countless souls who feed the cradle of civilization. The good news? You're alive in a land of cities, writing, and law. The bad news? Your life is a daily wrestle with mud, heat, and a bureaucracy that makes modern DMVs look friendly. Your day begins in a mud brick hut, the walls cool but crumbling, the roof a weave of palm fronds that leaks when the rare rains come. Your bed is a reed mat on the packed dirt floor, shared with your family and a few scorpions that treat your home like a vacation spot. The blanket's a coarse linen sheet, stiff with dust and smelling faintly of the goats you keep out back. You wake to the bleating of those goats and the distant chant of a priest from the Ziryab, the temple that looms over your village like a reminder of who's really in charge, the gods and the king who claims to speak for them. You stumble outside to answer nature's call. No toilets, no outhouses, just a ditch behind the hut, already buzzing with flies. Privacy? A myth. Your kids and neighbors are up, and nobody blinks at the sight of you squatting in the dawnlight. Waste goes into the river or a communal pit, where it mingles with animal dung and the occasional broken pot. Washing up means splashing your face with water from a clay jug, gritty with river silt. Soap's not a thing yet. You rub your hands with ash and hope for the best. Your skin's rough, cracked from the sun, and you've got a rash you're pretty sure came from the irrigation ditch. Breakfast is simple and fast. You squat by a small fire, eating a bowl of barley porridge, thickened with dates if the harvest was good. It's bland, chewy, and sometimes crunches with bits of husk or stone. On the side, a flatbread baked on a clay oven, so tough you need to soak it in water to chew. Water's your drink, pulled from the river and tasting faintly of mud. Beer's common, thick, sour, and safer than water, but you save it for evening, when you need to forget the day's toil. Meat's rare, maybe a bit of fish or goat on a festival day. Vegetables? Onions, leeks, or lentils, boiled into a mush that's more survival than flavor. Your kids eat the same, their small hands clutching bread as they mimic your tired slump. Dressing is a quick affair. Your wardrobe is one linen kilt, knee-length and stained with sweat and clay. It's been months since you washed it, water's too precious, and the river's a track. No underwear, just a belt to keep the kilt from slipping. Shoes? Sandals of woven reeds, if you're lucky. Most days you're barefoot, your feet calloused from trudging through fields and thorns. Your skin's a battlefield, sunburn, insect bites, and a constant itch from the dust that coats everything. Bathing's a luxury. The public bathhouse is for merchants and priests, not farmers like you. You smell like sweat, earth, and desperation, but so does everyone else. Work is your life, and it's brutal. You're up with the sun, tending fields of barley and emmer wheat that feed the city of a day's walk away. Your tools are basic, a wooden plow pulled by oxen, a flint sickle, a basket for hauling grain. You dig irrigation canals knee-deep in mud, praying the river doesn't flood or dry up. The king's overseers watch, clay tablets in hand, tallying your yield for taxes. You owe a third of your crop to the temple, another third to the palace, and if you're late, they'll take your land, or you. Women work too, planting, harvesting, or grinding grain until their hands bleed. Kids start young, scaring birds or carrying water. No weekends, no breaks, only the festival of Inanna gives you a day to drink and pray. The weather's a tyrant. Summer's a furnace, 100 degrees by noon, turning your fields into cracked clay. You sweat buckets, but stripping down's not an option. Skin burns, and the priests would call it blasphemy. Winter's milder, but damp, with chills that settle in your bones. Rain's rare, but when it comes, it's a deluge, flooding your fields and drowning your crops. Dust storms are worse, blinding you and burying your tools. Heat stroke, fever, or a snake bite, it's all part of the deal. Religion rules everything. The gods, Inanna, Enlil, Shamash, demand constant worship. You offer grain or a clay figurine at the household shrine, muttering prayers for a good harvest. The ziggurat's priests are powerful, collecting tithes and deciding who's blessed or cursed. Miss a ritual and the village whispers you've angered the gods. Superstition's your shadow. A bad dream means demons. A sick goat means divine wrath. You don't argue, you sacrifice and hope. Death's always near. Life expectancy's about 35, dragged down by kids dying.
Ibn Sina, 980–1037 CE. Before he was Ibn Sina, the polymath who shaped medicine and philosophy for centuries, he was Abu Ali al-Hussein, born in 980 CE in a village near Bukhara in what's now Uzbekistan. His story isn't one of kings or warriors, but of a mind so sharp it cut through the chaos of a fractured world, leaving a legacy that still guides doctors and thinkers today. In an age of war and dogma, Ibn Sina chased truth, and the world hasn't stopped chasing him since. He grew up in the Samanid Empire, a Persian realm buzzing with learning but teetering on collapse. His father, a government official, filled their home with books and scholars. By 10, Ibn Sina had memorized the Quran and mastered Arabic grammar. By 16, he was studying logic, mathematics, and astronomy, outpacing his teachers. Medicine caught his eye, and he devoured every text he could find, treating patients before he was old enough to grow a proper beard. Medicine is not difficult, he later wrote, but the rest of philosophy is. Cocky? Maybe, but he backed it up. At 18, he saved the life of a Samanid prince, earning access to the royal library. There, he gorged on Greek, Persian, and Indian texts, Aristotle, Galen, Hindu mathematics. He wrote his first book, a medical encyclopedia, at 21 and never stopped. His masterpiece, The Canon of Medicine, became a medical Bible used in Europe and Asia for 500 years.
It detailed anatomy, diseases, and treatments with a precision that humbled his peers. He wasn't just a doctor, he was a philosopher, poet, and scientist, writing on logic, metaphysics, and even music. His book of healing wasn't about medicine, but the soul, blending reason and faith in a way that made theologians nervous. Life wasn't kind to him. The Samanid Empire crumbled, and Ibn Sina wandered, serving warlords and dodging assassins. He worked as a physician and vizier, navigating courts where a wrong word could mean death. He was imprisoned once, escaping by writing treatises so brilliant his captors let him go. His health faltered, colic, exhaustion, maybe epilepsy, but he never slowed. He dictated books by candlelight, drank wine to dull the pain, and debated scholars until dawn. His enemies called him a heretic, accusing him of straying from Islam, but his faith was deep, woven into his search for truth. He died at 57 in Hamadan, his body worn out, but his mind still blazing. His grave became a pilgrimage site, his books copied across continents. The canon shaped medieval universities, and his philosophy influenced Aquinas and Descartes. Ibn Sina wasn't just a scholar, he was a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern thought, a man who saw the universe as a puzzle and spent his life solving it. Tonight, when you take an aspirin or ponder life's big questions, think of Ibn Sina, scribbling in a war-torn world, chasing truth with a quill and a stubborn heart. He didn't just live, he lit the way for centuries to come.
The Bog Woman of Holdremos and Wangari Maathai. The Bog Woman of Holdremos, c. 100 BCE. In the misty bogs of Denmark, 100 BCE, a woman was laid to rest in a way that preserved her for millennia. Discovered in 1879 near Holdremos, her body was found curled in peat, her skin tanned by the bog's acids, her story a mystery wrapped in wool and silence. Known as the Holdremos woman, she's a window into a world of ritual, sacrifice, and a people who saw death as a bridge to the divine. Her world was Iron Age Denmark, a land of farms, forests, and bogs that held both life and mystery. She was about 40, old for her time, her body worn but strong. She wore a woolen skirt and scarf, dyed with plant juices, and a sheepskin cape, her last defense against the cold. Her right arm was nearly severed. Her stomach held traces of rye and weeds, her final meal. Was she sacrificed, murdered, or buried with honor? The bog's embrace kept her secrets, but not her presence. Imagine her life. Your home is a timber longhouse, smoky and dim, shared with kin and cattle. You sleep on furs, waking to frost and the lowing of cows. Food is simple, rye porridge, smoked fish, maybe pork if the hunt was good. You weave wool, tend fields, and offer grain to the gods, whose names are whispered in the wind. The bog is sacred, a place where offerings sink into the earth, pots, weapons, sometimes people. The Holdremos woman might have been a farmer, a healer, or a priestess. Her severed arm a sign of violence or ritual. Her clothes, finely made, suggest status, but her simple meal speaks of hardship. Bogs were portals to the gods. The Celts and Germans believed they connected the living to the underworld. Her burial, face down, pressed into the peat, might have been a sacrifice to ensure a good harvest or appease angry spirits. Her arm's injury could mean she was killed, maybe a criminal or an outsider. Or perhaps she was chosen, her death a gift to the divine. The bog preserved her hair, her clothes, even her last meal, but not her name. She's a question mark, a life frozen in time. Today, she lies in a Copenhagen museum, her body a silent storyteller. She reminds us that even in a world of mud and cold, humans sought meaning, offering their best, even their lives, to something greater. The Holdremos woman isn't just a relic, she's a mirror, reflecting our need to connect with the eternal. Wangari Maathai, 1940 to 2011. Before she was Wangari Maathai, the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize, she was a girl born in 1940 in Nyeri, Kenya, under the shadow of Mount Kenya. Her story isn't one of quiet gardens, but of a woman who planted trees, defied oppression, and grew a movement that changed the world. In a land scarred by colonialism and greed, Wangari sowed hope, one seed at a time.
She grew up in a Kikuyu village where women tilled the land and men held power. Her parents were farmers, their lives tied to the soil. Wangari was bright, curious, and stubborn, sent to a mission school where she learned English and science. She won a scholarship to study biology in the U.S., earning degrees in a time when African women were rarely educated. Returning to Kenya in the 1960s, she faced a nation struggling under post-colonial corruption and environmental ruin. Forests were being razed, rivers drying up, women walking miles for firewood. In 1977, she founded the Green Belt movement, a simple idea: pay women to plant trees. It wasn't just about reforestation, it was about empowerment. Trees meant shade, fuel, food, and income. Women who'd been silenced found voices, planting millions of trees across Kenya. But the government, led by President Daniel Arap Moi, saw her as a threat. A woman, organizing, speaking, resisting, unacceptable. She was beaten, arrested, and mocked as a madwoman. Yet she kept planting, kept marching, kept fighting. Her activism went beyond trees. She protested land grabs, fought for democracy, and linked environmental health to human rights. You cannot protect the environment unless you empower people, she said. Her movement spread to other African nations, her ideas influencing global conservation. In 2004, she won the Nobel Peace Prize, not for peace in the abstract, but for building it through action, tree by tree, woman by woman. Her life wasn't easy. She faced divorce, poverty, and death threats. Her faith, rooted in Kikuyu spirituality and Christianity, kept her grounded. She died in 2011 of cancer, but her legacy grows. Over 50 million trees planted, countless lives changed. Wangari wasn't just an activist, she's a force, proving that one person, armed with a seed and a vision, can heal a wounded world. Tonight, when you see a tree or stand up for what's right, think of Wangari, digging in the dirt, defying the odds. She did.
So, there you have it, a day in ancient Mesopotamia, a mind that lit up medieval Persia, a woman preserved in a Danish bog, and a Kenyan who changed the world with trees. These stories aren't just history, they're proof that humans can endure anything: floods, wars, silence, oppression, and still create, think, plant, and fight. As you sit in your modern world with heat, light, and freedom they could only dream of, remember them. The farmer who fed a city, Ibn Sina who mapped the body and soul, the Huldremos woman who spoke through time, Wangari who grew a forest of change. They didn't have our comforts, but they had fire. Their lives were tough, but their legacies are tougher. Let their stories remind you, no matter how dark the world gets, you've got a spark to keep it burning. Next, we'll weave through 3 worlds where survival demanded grit, ingenuity, and a refusal to break. No golden crowns or tidy endings here, just real people carving out lives in the face of chaos. We'll wander the bustling markets of ancient Timbuktu in 1300 CE, follow the relentless curiosity of Ada Lovelace in Victorian England, and uncover the enigma of the Red Deer cave people from 14,000 years ago. Before we jump in, hit that like button if you're ready for a journey that's as fierce as it is fascinating. And drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'm curious who's joining us at 3:50 p.m. in my time zone. Grab a snack, maybe open a window for some fresh air, and let's step into the past together. A day in the life of a Timbuktu trader, 1300 CE. Congratulations, you've just woken up in Timbuktu, 1300 CE, in the heart of the Mali Empire. You're a trader, a cog in the wheel of one of the wealthiest and most vibrant cities in the medieval world. The good news? You're at the crossroads of gold, salt, and knowledge, where ideas and riches flow like the Niger River. The bad news? The Sahara's a brutal neighbor, and one bad deal could leave you broke or worse. Your day starts in a mud brick house, its thick walls keeping out the dawn's heat. Your bed is a woven mat on a clay floor, topped with a goatskin that smells faintly of the camel caravan you joined last month. The blanket's a thin cotton sheet, already damp with sweat. You share the room with your family, a few chickens, and a persistent cloud of dust that settles everywhere.
The air hums with the call to prayer from a nearby mosque, a reminder that faith and commerce are the twin pillars of this city. You step outside to relieve yourself in a corner of the courtyard, shielded by a reed screen if you're lucky. Privacy's a luxury. Your neighbors are already up, haggling over millet or gossiping about the latest caravan. Waste goes into a pit or the streets, where it joins animal dung and market scraps. You wash with water from a clay pot, gritty with sand, and scrub your hands with a palm frond. Soap's rare, reserved for the wealthy scholars who lecture at Sankore University. Your skin's dry, cracked from the desert air, and you've got an itch you blame on the camel hair blanket. Breakfast is a quick affair, eaten cross-legged on the floor. You scoop up a bowl of millet porridge, spiced with baobab fruit if the market was kind. It's thick, slightly sour, and occasionally gritty with bits of husk. On the side, a piece of flatbread baked on a clay griddle, chewy and tough. You drink water from a gourd, warm and tasting of earth, or maybe a sip of palm wine if you're feeling bold. Meat's a treat, goat or chicken, saved for festivals when the Mansa, the emperor, throws a feast. Vegetables are scarce, but you might have a handful of dates or onions to break the monotony. Your kids eat the same, their eyes big with hunger as they wait for scraps. Dressing means slipping into a cotton tunic, dyed indigo if you're doing well, plain if you're scraping by. It's loose, dusty, and smells like the market, sweat, spices, and camel. No underwear, just a sash to cinch the tunic. Sandals of leather or woven grass protect your feet from the scorching sand, but they're worn thin, and pebbles sneak in constantly. Your skin's a map of scars, sunburn, insect bites, and a rash from the cheap dye in your clothes. Bathing's a trek to the river, where you splash in murky water shared with fishermen and crocodiles. You smell like dust and desperation, but in Timbuktu, everyone does. Work is your life, and it's a high-stakes game. You're up with the sun, heading to the market where traders from across the Sahara barter gold, salt, ivory, and slaves. Your shop is a mat under a palm canopy, piled with sacks of kola nuts and bolts of cloth. You haggle in Songhai, Arabic, or gestures, dodging scams from Tuareg nomads and tax collectors sent by the Mansa. Your tools are simple: a scale, a knife, a ledger scratched on palm bark. Women trade too, selling pottery or gossip, while kids run errands or guard the goods. A good day means profit, a bad day means debt, and the Mansa's prison is no joke. The weather's a constant foe. The Sahara's heat hits 110 degrees Fahrenheit by noon, turning your tunic into a soggy rag. You wrap a turban around your head, but the sun still burns. The Harmattan wind brings dust storms, coating everything in red grit and stinging your eyes. Rain's rare, but when it comes, it's a torrent, flooding the market and turning streets into mud. Heat stroke, thirst, or a snake bite, it's all part of the trade. Religion's woven into everything. Islam shapes Timbuktu, from the mosques to the manuscripts. You pray 5 times a day, pausing mid-haggle to face Mecca. The mosques are hubs of learning, where scholars debate theology and astronomy. You offer alms or a prayer at the Jingowereber Mosque, hoping Allah blesses your next deal. Superstition lingers too. A bad dream means spirits. A sick camel means a curse. You don't question, you pray and trade. Death's a frequent visitor. Life expectancy's around 40, dragged down by malaria, dysentery, and kids dying young. A cut can fester, a fever can kill, and childbirth is a gamble. Medicine's a mix of herbs, Quranic verses, and a healer who...
Ada Lovelace, 1815-1852. Before she was Ada Lovelace, the world's first computer programmer, she was Augusta Ada Byron, born in 1815 in London, England, to a poet father and a mother obsessed with mathematics. Her story isn't one of ball gowns or romance, but of a mind that saw the future in gears and numbers, in a world that told women to stay quiet. In Victorian England's rigid society, Ada dreamed in code, and her vision still powers our digital age.
Her father, Lord Byron, was a scandalous poet who left when she was a baby. Her mother, Annabella, raised Ada to be everything Byron wasn't: logical, disciplined, mathematical. Tutors drilled her in arithmetic and science, while other girls learned piano and etiquette. By 12, Ada was designing wings for a flying machine, sketching blueprints with a precision that stunned her teachers. Her mind was restless, blending logic with imagination, a poetical science, she called it. At 17, she met Charles Babbage, a mathematician building the analytical engine, a mechanical computer that never got past blueprints. Ada saw what Babbage couldn't: a machine that could do more than calculate. She translated an article on the engine, adding notes 3 times longer than the original. Her notes weren't just explanations, they were prophecies. She described how the engine could create music, process symbols, and follow instructions, what we now call programming. She even wrote the first algorithm, a sequence to compute Bernoulli numbers, making her the first coder. The analytical engine weaves algebraic patterns, she wrote, seeing software in a world of hardware. Victorian England wasn't kind to women with ideas. Ada's gender barred her from universities and scientific societies. Her mother pushed her to marry, and at 20, she wed William King, later Earl of Lovelace, bearing 3 children. Marriage didn't stop her. She corresponded with mathematicians, studied electricity, and wrestled with Babbage's designs. But society whispered. A woman's place was the drawing room, not the study. Her bold ideas were dismissed as unladylike, her health mocked as hysteria. Her life was a battle. Chronic illness, possibly uterine cancer, plagued her, worsened by doctors who bled her with leeches. She gambled to fund her work, racking up debts that fueled gossip. Her mother's control and society's rules suffocated her, yet she kept writing, dreaming of a world where machines could think. She died at 36, her work largely forgotten until the 20th century, when programmers rediscovered her notes. The U.S. Department of Defense named a language Ada in her honor, and her vision lives in every line of code. Tonight, when you tap your phone or write a program, think of Ada, scribbling equations by candlelight, seeing a digital future in a world of steam and corsets. She didn't just calculate, she created, and her code still runs. The Red Deer Cave People and Malala Yousafzai. The Red Deer Cave People, circa 14,000 to 11,000 BCE. Deep in the caves of southern China, around 14,000 years ago, a group of humans lived on the edge of a changing world. Known as the Red Deer Cave People, their bones were found in 1989 in Maludong Cave, alongside charred deer bones and stone tools. They're a mystery, a people who looked different, lived differently, and vanished as the Ice Age faded. Their story is one of survival, adaptation, and a fleeting mark on time. Their world was the late Pleistocene, a time of glaciers and megafauna. The Red Deer Cave People were small, with skulls blending modern and archaic features, large brows, flat faces, brains smaller than ours. Were they early humans, a hybrid species, or something else? Their bones, stained red by clay, tell us they hunted deer, gathered plants, and lived in caves lit by flickering fires. They were among the last of their kind, clinging to a way of life as the climate warmed and new peoples moved in. Imagine their life. Your home is a damp cave, its walls etched with soot. You sleep on hides, waking to the chill of dawn and the howl of a distant wolf. Food is what you kill or find. Roasted deer, wild roots, berries that stain your fingers. You chew tough meat, your teeth worn by grit. Tools are flint blades and bone needles, used to scrape hides or sew skins into cloaks. You paint your body with ochre, maybe for ritual, maybe for warmth. The cave is your world, shared with kin, where stories are told in grunts and gestures. Life was brutal. Predators, bears, leopards lurked outside. Cold snapped bones, hunger gnawed stomachs, and childbirth was a deadly risk. The Red Deer Cave People buried their dead, sometimes with deer antlers, a hint of ritual or belief in an afterlife. Their tools were simple but clever, flakes sharpened for cutting, bones shaped for sewing. They adapted to a warming world, but not fast enough. By 11,000 BCE, they were gone, replaced by modern humans or absorbed into new groups. Their legacy is their mystery. Their bones challenge what we know about human evolution, suggesting a diversity we're only beginning to understand. They didn't build cities or write epics, but they survived millennia, leaving fragments of a life we're still piecing together. The Red Deer Cave people aren't just fossils. They're a whisper of a world we've lost, asking us who we are and where we're going. Malala Yousafzai, 1997 to present. Before she was Malala, the youngest Nobel Peace Prize laureate, she was a girl born in 1997 in Mingora, Pakistan, in the Swat Valley. Her story isn't one of quiet childhoods, but of a voice that refused to be silenced, even when bullets tried to stop it. In a world where girls were told to stay small, Malala spoke, and her words reshaped the fight for education. She grew up in a family that valued learning. Her father, Ziauddin, ran a school and taught her to question, to dream. But the Taliban took over Swat in 2007, banning girls' education, bombing schools, and enforcing fear. At 11, Malala began blogging for the BBC under a pseudonym, describing life under Taliban rule. Her words were sharp, fearless, exposing the loss of books, friends, and freedom. By 15, she was a local activist, speaking on TV, her name known to both allies and enemies. In 2012, the Taliban tried to silence her. A gunman boarded her school bus, shot her in the head, and left her for dead. She was 15. But Malala didn't die. Airlifted to a hospital in Birmingham, England, she survived, her resolve unbroken. The attack made her a global symbol, but she didn't want fame, she wanted change. From her hospital bed, she began a new fight, founding the Malala Fund to advocate for girls' education worldwide. Her life hasn't been easy. She lives in exile, unable to return to Pakistan due to death threats. She's faced criticism. Some call her a Western puppet, others resent her fame. Yet she keeps working, speaking at the UN, writing books, earning a degree from Oxford. In 2014, at 17, she won the Nobel Peace Prize, sharing it with Kailash Satyarthi for their fight for children's rights. Her fund has helped millions of girls go to school, from Nigeria to Jordan. Malala's faith, rooted in Islam, drives her. The extremists are afraid of books and pens, she said. Her courage isn't just in surviving, it's in refusing to hate, in choosing words over weapons. She's still young.
So, there you have it. A day in Timbuktu's markets, a mind that coded the future, a people lost in China's caves, and a girl who turned a bullet into a movement. These stories aren't just history. They're proof that humans can face deserts, doubt, extinction, or oppression and still trade, dream, survive, and speak. As you sit with your Wi-Fi and warm lights, think of them. The trader who braved the Sahara, Ada who saw beyond her time, the Red Deer Cave people who clung to life, Malala who refused silence. They didn't have our ease, but they had fire. Their worlds were harsh, but their legacies burn bright. Let their stories spark something in you, because if they could shine in their darkness, what's stopping us in ours? Next, we'll roam the chaotic streets of medieval Kyoto in 1350 CE, chase the boundless mind of Ramanujan in colonial India, and unravel the silent strength of the Vinca culture from 4500 BCE. Before we start, smash that like button if you're ready for a ride that's as gritty as it is inspiring, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's joining us across the globe. Grab a coffee, maybe crack a window to let in that evening breeze, and let's slip into the past together. 13. A day in the life of a Kyoto artisan, 1350 CE. Congratulations, you've just woken up in Kyoto, 1350 CE, during Japan's Muromachi period. You're an artisan, a lacquerware maker scraping by in a city of samurai, monks, and merchants. The good news?
You're in a cultural hub where art and Zen are blooming. The bad news? War's brewing, the streets are rough, and one wrong move could land you in a ditch. Your day begins in a cramped wooden house, its paper screens rattling in the morning chill. Your bed is a straw mat on a creaky floor, shared with your family and a few mice that treat your home like a buffet. The blankets a patched cotton quilt, thin and smelling of charcoal smoke. You wake to the clang of a temple bell and the distant shouts of fishmongers setting up in the market. The air's thick with the scent of rice porridge and the neighbor's latrine, a reminder that Kyoto's beauty comes with a side of stench. You shuffle outside to a shared latrine, a wooden bench over a pit that's already buzzing with flies. Privacy's a dream. Your neighbor's kids are splashing in a puddle nearby, and you just hope nobody's looking. Waste goes into the pit or the Kamo River, where it joins kitchen scraps and the occasional dead rat. You wash with cold water from a bucket, gritty with well sediment. Soaps for nobles. You scrub with a rice husk, leaving your skin raw but passable. Your hands are stained black from lacquer sap, your knuckles cracked from the damp. Breakfast is a quick squat by a smoky hearth. You eat a bowl of rice gruel, flavored with a pinch of miso if you're lucky. It's watery, warm, and sometimes crunches with bits of stone from the mill. On the side, a pickled plum or a strip of dried fish, tough as leather. You drink barley tea, tepid and earthy, or water from the well that tastes faintly of moss. Meats of fantasy, maybe a scrap of boar during the Gion festival, if the gods smile. Your kids slurp the same gruel, their small hands clutching chipped bowls as they eye your plum. Dressing is simple. You pull on a hemp kimono, faded and patched, stiff with sweat and lacquer fumes. It's been weeks since you washed it, water's for drinking, not laundry. No underwear, just a cord to tie the kimono shut. Your feet slip into straw sandals, worn to threads, leaving your toes to fend for themselves on Kyoto's muddy streets. Your skin's a war zone, itches from fleas, burns from lacquer, and a rash you blame on the cheap hemp. Bathing's a monthly trek to a public bathhouse where you soak in cloudy water with a dozen strangers. You smell like charcoal, fish, and regret, but so does the guy next door. Work is your lifeline, and it's grueling. You're up with the sun, hunched over a wooden table in a dim workshop, brushing lacquer onto bowls and boxes for a merchant who'll sell them to samurai or monks. Your tools are basic: brushes, a grinding stone, a knife that's more rust than steel. The lacquer sap stings your hands, and the fumes make your head spin, but you keep going. A good piece might earn you a few copper coins. A bad one might get you a beating. Women in the family help, polishing or weaving straw, while kids fetch water or sweep sawdust. The shogun's wars mean demand for your work, but also taxes that eat half your pay. The weather's no ally. Kyoto's summers are humid, turning your workshop into a sauna where lacquer dries too fast. Winters are damp and cold, with frost creeping through the walls and numbing your fingers. Spring brings cherry blossoms, but also rain that floods the streets, turning them into rivers of mud. A storm, a fever, or a stray arrow from a samurai skirmish, it's all just another day. Religion's your anchor. Buddhism and Shinto blend in Kyoto, with temples and shrines on every corner. You offer rice to Inari at a household shrine, praying for a steady hand. The monks at Tofukuji demand alms, and you can't say no. Bad karma's worse than an empty purse. Superstitions everywhere. A crow means death. A broken bowl means spirits. You don't argue. You burn incense and hope. Death's a constant shadow. Life expectancy's about 35, dragged down by kids dying from smallpox or hunger. A cut can turn septic, a cough can become consumption, and childbirth's a coin toss. Medicine's a mix of herbs, acupuncture, and a monk who chants sutras but knows nothing about fevers. Funerals are quick: a pyre, a prayer, a scatter of ashes in the river. No gravestones, just a whispered name in the family shrine.
Srinivasa Ramanujan, 1887–1920. Before he was Ramanujan, the self-taught genius who reshaped mathematics, he was a boy born in 1887 in Erode, India, under British colonial rule. His story isn't one of privilege or classrooms, but of a mind that burned so bright it lit up the world, even as it consumed him. In a society that valued clerks over dreamers, Ramanujan chased numbers, and his equations still dance in the halls of science. He grew up in a Tamil Brahmin family, poor but devout, in Kumbakonam. His mother, a singer of devotional hymns, taught him faith. His father, a cloth merchant's clerk, taught him struggle. School bored him, except for math. By 10, he was devouring textbooks, solving problems that stumped his teachers. At 15, he found a library book, a synopsis of elementary results in pure and applied mathematics, and it changed his life. He filled notebooks with formulas, theorems, and wild leaps no one understood, working alone, guided by intuition he called divine. He flunked out of college twice. English, history, and biology didn't matter to him, only numbers did. Broke and jobless, he married Janaki, a 10-year-old girl in an arranged match, and took clerk jobs to survive. But he never stopped writing equations, mailing them to mathematicians in India and England. Most ignored him, but G.H. Hardy, a Cambridge professor, saw genius in his chaotic, unproven theorems. In 1914, Hardy invited him to England, and Ramanujan, a devout Hindu who'd never left India, crossed the ocean, defying caste taboos and his mother's fears. At Cambridge, he stunned the mathematical world. His work on infinite series, partitions, and number theory was revolutionary, solving problems that had baffled scholars for centuries. He and Hardy published papers that redefined mathematics. But Ramanujan's methods were unorthodox. Leaps of insight, often without proof, that he said came from the goddess Namagiri in dreams. An equation for me has no meaning unless it expresses a thought of God, he wrote. His formulas now underpin black hole physics and string theory. Life in England was brutal. The cold, the war, the vegetarian diet of soggy potatoes, his health crumbled. Tuberculosis and malnutrition ravaged him, and racism from some colleagues stung. He returned to India in 1919, sick but still scribbling equations. He died at 32, leaving behind 4,000 theorems and a legacy that mathematicians are still unraveling. His notebooks, rediscovered decades later, sparked new fields of study. Tonight, when you use a computer or marvel at the universe, think of Ramanujan, hunched over a slate in a dim room, seeing patterns where others saw chaos. He didn't just solve equations, he spoke the language of the cosmos, and it's still singing. The Vincha culture and Angela Davis. The Vincha culture, c. 5300–4500 BCE. In the fertile plains of the Balkans, around 5300 BCE, a people we call the Vincha culture thrived along the Danube. Known from their clay figurines and mysterious script-like symbols, they were farmers, artisans, and perhaps the first Europeans to work copper. Discovered in 1908 near Vincha, Serbia, their settlements reveal a world of community, creativity, and quiet strength, long before cities or kings. Their world was the Neolithic, a time of stone tools and new crops. The Vincha lived in mud and wattle houses, clustered in villages of hundreds. They grew barley, wheat, and lentils, herded goats, and hunted deer. Their pottery was intricate, swirled with spirals. Their figurines, often female, had almond eyes and enigmatic smiles. Were they goddesses, ancestors, or portraits? Their Vincha script, etched on clay, might be the world's oldest writing system, though we can't read it. They traded obsidian and shells, linking distant communities in a web of exchange. Imagine their life. Your home is a one-room house, its floor packed earth, its roof thatched with reeds. You sleep on a hide, waking to the lowing of cattle and the scent of baking bread.
Food is simple: porridge, flatbread, stewed plums, or roasted goat on feast days. You chew coarse grains, your teeth worn by 30. Tools are flint sickles, bone needles, and copper beads, a new marvel. You knead clay into pots, shaping stories with your hands. The village hums with chatter, children playing, and the rhythm of looms. Life was hard. Winters froze crops, summers dried rivers. Childbirth killed many, and a broken bone could mean death. Yet the Vinca buried their dead under house floors, with figurines and tools, suggesting belief in an afterlife. Their figurines, often female, hint at reverence for fertility or creation. Their script, lines, chevrons, crosses, might be tallies, prayers, or names. They built no temples, but their homes were sacred, filled with ritual. Their legacy is their mystery. They vanished around 4500 BCE, maybe from climate shifts or new migrants. Their figurines and symbols survived, whispering of a people who turned mud into art, stone into tools, and community into strength. The Vinca aren't just artifacts, they're a testament to human roots, asking us what we'd leave behind. Angela Davis, 1944 to present. Before she was Angela Davis, the activist who redefined resistance, she was a girl born in 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama, in the heart of Jim Crow's violence. Her story isn't one of quiet acceptance, but of a voice that roared against racism, sexism, and oppression, inspiring generations to fight. In a world that tried to cage her, Angela broke free, and her fire still burns. She grew up in Dynamite Hill, a neighborhood bombed for its black middle-class residents. Her parents, teachers, instilled pride and defiance. A prodigy, she studied in New York and Paris, earning a PhD in philosophy. But the 1960s called her to action. She joined the Black Panther Party and the Communist Party, fighting for black liberation, workers' rights, and an end to systemic violence. Her afro, her fist raised, became symbols of revolution. In 1970, her life changed. Accused of aiding a courtroom hostage crisis, charges later disproven, she became a fugitive, landing on the FBI's most wanted list. Arrested, she faced the death penalty, but a global Free Angela movement from Moscow to Havana rallied for her. Acquitted in 1972, she emerged stronger, speaking against prisons, racism, and capitalism. Walls turned sideways are bridges, she said, urging action over despair. Her work never stopped. She taught philosophy, wrote books like Women, Race, and Class, and fought for prison abolition, LGBTQ rights, and Palestinian liberation. She faced backlash, labeled a terrorist, fired from UCLA, but never wavered. Her Marxist lens and intersectional feminism reshaped activism, showing how race, class, and gender intertwine. Her life's been tough: arrests, threats, and the weight of being a symbol. Yet her faith in collective struggle keeps her going. Still active, she speaks, organizes, and inspires, a living bridge between the civil rights era and today. Tonight, when you question power or stand for justice, think of Angela.
So, there you have it. A day in medieval Kyoto. A mind that mapped the infinite. A people who shaped clay into stories. And a woman who turned oppression into power. These aren't just tales. They're proof that humans can face war, poverty, silence, or hate, and still create, think, build, and rise. As you sit with your phone's glow and a roof overhead, remember them. The artisan who painted through chaos. Ramanujan who saw divinity in numbers. The Vinca who left whispers in clay. Angela who made bridges from walls. They didn't have our comforts, but they had fire. Their worlds were harsh, their victories hard-won. Let their stories light a spark in you. Because if they could burn bright in their time, what's stopping us in ours? Next, we'll trek through the windswept steppes with a Mongol herder in 1220 CE, unravel the genius of Ziryab in 9th century Al-Andalus,
and peer into the shadows of the Clovis culture from 13,000 years ago. Before we dive in, smash that like button if you're ready for a journey that's as fierce as it is humbling. And drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's joining us across the globe. Grab a warm drink, maybe bundle up for that Mongol chill, and let's step into the past together. A day in the life of a Mongol herder, 1220 CE. Congratulations, you've just woken up on the Mongolian steppes, 1220 CE, in the shadow of Genghis Khan's empire. You're a herder, one of the nomadic souls who keep the Mongol machine running with horses, sheep, and grit. The good news? You're part of a world-conquering culture, free under endless skies. The bad news? The steppes a brutal master, and your life hangs on the whims of weather, wolves, and war. Your day starts in a felt yurt, its walls trembling in the dawn wind. Your bed is a pile of sheepskins on the hard earth, shared with your family and a lingering smell of boiled mutton. The blankets a coarse wool cover, patched and heavy with the scent of smoke and sweat. You wake to the bleat of goats and the low whistle of the wind, a sound that never stops. The yurt's smoky, lit by a flickering fire in the center, and the air's thick with the tang of dung used as fuel. You stumble outside to relieve yourself on the open steppe. No walls, no shame. Just you, the grass, and a biting wind that makes speed a priority. Waste stays where it falls, food for the earth or the dogs that trail your camp. You splash your face with water from a leather pouch, icy and tasting of the river you camped by yesterday. Soap's a myth. You rub your hands with wool grease to keep the cold at bay. Your skin's chapped, scarred from rope burns, and you've got an itch you blame on the lice that treat your clothes like home. Breakfast is a hasty meal, eaten cross-legged by the fire. You sip arog, fermented mare's milk, sour and fizzy, and chew strips of dried mutton, tough as leather and salty enough to sting. If the herd's been good, you might have a bowl of millet gruel, thickened with mare's milk and gritty with steppe dust. No bread, no vegetables, just meat, milk, and whatever roots your wife dug up last week. Water's scarce, often frozen, so you drink more arog, warming your gut. Your kids gnaw on mutton scraps, their faces smudged with soot as they huddle close. Dressing means pulling on a deal, a long wool robe, greasy and patched, smelling of horse and smoke. It's warm but heavy, tied with a sash that holds your knife and pouch. No underwear, just felt boots that leak in the snow. Your hair's matted, braided to keep it from your eyes, and your beard's a nest for dust and ice. Bathing's a rare dip in a river, so cold it steals your breath, shared with horses and flies. You smell like the herd, musky, earthy, alive. Work is your world, and it's endless. You're up with the sun, checking the herd, hundreds of sheep, goats, and horses that are your wealth and survival. You ride a wiry pony, wielding a lasso and a wooden staff to keep strays in line. The steppes vast, but dangers everywhere. Wolves, blizzards, or rival tribes looking to steal your flock. You move camp every few weeks, packing the yurt onto carts, driving the herd to fresh grass. Women milk mares, shear sheep, and dry dung for fuel, while kids herd lambs or fetch water. No rest, no pay, just the hope your horses breed and the Khan scouts don't draft you for war. The weather's a tyrant. Winter's a deep freeze, with snow burying your yurt and wind that cuts like a blade. Summer's scorching, the grass brittle, the rivers dry. Spring brings mud, fall brings storms, and a single bad season can starve your herd. Frostbite, sunstroke, or a fall from your horse, it's all part of the life. Religion's a mix of shamanism and sky worship. Tengri, the eternal blue sky, watches everything. You offer milk to the spirits, tying blue cloth to sacred trees, and consult a shaman when a horse goes lame. Superstition's your shadow. A strange cloud means bad luck. A sick child means angry ancestors. You don't question, you sprinkle arog and ride on. Death's always close. Life expectancy's about 35, dragged down by kids dying from cold or fever. A broken bone can cripple, a cut can fester, and childbirth's a gamble. Medicine's a shaman's chant, a few herbs, and a prayer. Funerals are simple, a body left on the steppe for the sky and wolves, or burned if you're near a camp. No graves, just the wind to carry your name. By night, you're back in the yurt, sipping arog, your body aching, your deal crusted with dust. You sing a song of the steppe, your kids listening wide-eyed. Life as a herder's a fight, but you're tougher than the storms. You ride, you herd, you live. So, when you crank up your thermostat tonight, thank those Mongol herders. They didn't just survive the steppe, they fueled an empire, one hoofbeat at a time.
Ziryab, 789 to 857 CE. Before he was Ziryab, the cultural icon who transformed Al-Andalus, he was Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Nafi, born around 789 CE in Baghdad, then part of the Abbasid Caliphate. His story isn't one of swords or thrones, but of a man who wielded music, style, and intellect like weapons, reshaping a civilization. In a world of poets and emirs, Ziryab brought elegance, and his influence still lingers in every strum of a guitar. His origins are murky. Possibly born to a freed African slave, he grew up in Baghdad, a city of scholars and song. Nicknamed Blackbird for his dark skin and soaring voice, he trained under Ishaq al-Mausili, a master musician at the caliph's court. By his 20s, Ziryab was a prodigy, singing Persian and Arabic melodies, playing the oud with a finesse that stunned listeners. But talent bred envy. His teacher, jealous, warned him to leave Baghdad or face trouble. Ziryab fled, first to North Africa, then to Cordoba in 822, invited by Emir Abdal-Rahman II of Al-Andalus. Cordoba was a jewel of Muslim Spain, but Ziryab made it shine brighter. He founded a music school, refining the oud by adding a fifth string, creating melodies that became the roots of flamenco and Andalusian music. He taught singers to use their throats, not just their lungs, and introduced the nuba, a suite of songs that shaped classical Arabic music. But his genius wasn't just musical, he revolutionized culture. He introduced chess, refined table manners, and popularized short haircuts and seasonal fashion, light silks in summer, furs in winter. He even invented a toothpaste recipe and promoted daily bathing, a novelty in medieval Europe. His influence reached the kitchen. Ziryab introduced new dishes, layered pastries, stuffed vegetables, and the idea of a three-course meal: soup, main dish, dessert. He brought glassware to replace heavy metal cups, making dining an art. His school trained singers, poets, and chefs, spreading his ideas across Al-Andalus and beyond. Women, often excluded from learning, studied under him, their voices carrying his songs to distant courts. Life wasn't easy. As a black man in a stratified society, he faced prejudice, though his talent won him favor. He served emirs but stayed independent, a risky balance in a world of intrigue. His health faltered, gout, possibly from rich court food, but he never stopped creating. He died in Cordoba at 68, leaving 24 children and a legacy that touched Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Tonight, when you strum a guitar, savor a dessert, or brush your teeth, think of Ziryab, singing in a Cordoba courtyard, weaving culture from notes and ideas. He didn't just live, he made life beautiful, one song at a time. The Clovis culture and Vandana Shiva. The Clovis culture, c. 13,000–11,000 BCE. Across the plains of North America, 13,000 years ago, a people we call the Clovis culture hunted in a world of mammoths and ice. Known from their fluted spear points, found from Canada to Mexico, they were among the first Americans, tracking megafauna in a land still gripped by the Ice Age. Their story, pieced from stone and bone, is one of survival, skill, and a fleeting mark on a changing world. Their world was the late Pleistocene, a time of glaciers and giant beasts, mastodons, saber-toothed cats, giant sloths. The Clovis people were nomads, living in small bands, following herds across grasslands. Their spear points, chipped from flint or obsidian, were razor-sharp, designed to pierce thick hides.
Found in sites like Blackwater Draw, New Mexico, these tools lie alongside mammoth bones, proof of their daring hunts. They also gathered berries, roots, and small game, adapting to a warming climate that would soon end their way of life. Imagine their life. Your home is a hide tent, stinking of tallow and smoke, pitched near a river. You sleep on furs, waking to frost and the distant trumpeting of a mammoth. Food is what you kill or find, roasted bison, wild seeds, or fish speared in icy streams. You chew sinew to soften it, your teeth worn by grit. Tools are flint knives, bone awls, and atlatls, levers that hurl spears with deadly force. You carve points by firelight, knapping stone with a precision that takes years to master. The camp hums with stories, told in a language lost to time. Life was perilous. Predators stalked, winters starved, and a misstep on a hunt could mean death. Childbirth was deadly, and few lived past 40. Yet the Clovis buried their dead with care, sometimes with red ochre or tools, hinting at rituals or belief in a beyond. Their points, often broken in hunts, were works of art, fluted for balance and beauty. They vanished around 11,000 BCE, maybe from climate change, overhunting, or new peoples moving in. Their DNA lives on in Native American descendants, a whisper of their legacy. Their story is their skill. They didn't build monuments, but their points, found in caches, some never used, speak of pride and purpose. The Clovis aren't just relics, they're proof that humans, even in a brutal world, chased mastery, leaving tools that still cut through time. Vandana Shiva, 1952, present. Before she was Vandana Shiva, the eco-warrior who challenged global corporations, she was a girl born in 1952 in Dehradun, India, in the foothills of the Himalayas. Her story isn't one of quiet fields, but of a scientist who became a voice for the earth, fighting for farmers, seeds, and justice. In a world of greed and monocultures, Vandana planted resistance, and her roots are still spreading. She grew up in a family of educators and foresters, learning to love the land. A physics PhD took her to Canada, but India's Chipko movement, women hugging trees to save forests, called her back. She saw farmers losing land to dams, forests raised for profits, and seeds patented by companies like Monsanto. In 1982, she founded the Research Foundation for Science, Technology, and Ecology, and later Navdanya, a network to save indigenous seeds and promote organic farming. The seed is the source of life, she said, and she fought to keep it free. Her work is a war on corporate control. She's battled GMO crops, patent laws, and globalization that starve small farmers. Navdanya has saved over 3,000 rice varieties, trained millions in sustainable farming, and challenged giants in court. Her books, like Soil Not Oil, link ecology to justice, showing how industrial agriculture harms the poor. She's a feminist, tying women's labor to the earth's survival, and a critic of capitalism, calling it ecocide. Her life's been tough: lawsuits, smear campaigns, and accusations of being anti-science. Her Gandhian philosophy and Hindu reverence for nature keep her grounded. Still active, she speaks globally, from climate summits to village fields, urging us to live simply so others may simply live. Tonight, when you eat an organic meal or fight for fairness, think of Vandana, sowing seeds in a world of concrete. She didn't just farm, she grew a movement, and it's still blooming.
So, there you have it, a day on the Mongol steppes, a song that shaped a civilization, a people who hunted giants, and a woman who fights for the earth. These aren't just stories, they're proof that humans can face storms, exile, ice, or empires and still herd, sing, hunt, and sow. As you sit with your warm lights and full fridge, remember them. The herder who braved the steppe, Ziryab who made beauty from notes, the Clovis who struck flint into art, Vandana who guards the seeds. They didn't have our ease, but they had fire. Their worlds were harsh, their triumphs hard-earned.
Let their stories spark something in you. Because if they could shine in their darkness, what's stopping us in ours? Next, we'll wander the crowded alleys of ancient Tenochtitlan in 1500 CE, trace the revolutionary mind of Mary Anning in 19th century England, and probe the mystery of the Nazca culture from 200 CE Peru. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're ready for a journey that's as fierce as it is haunting, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's joining us across the globe. Grab a cold drink, maybe light a candle for that ancient vibe, and let's step into the past together. A day in the life of a Tenochtitlan commoner, 1500 CE. Congratulations, you've just woken up in Tenochtitlan, 1500 CE, the dazzling capital of the Aztec Empire, built on a lake in what's now Mexico City. You're a commoner, a farmer or weaver, keeping this island city alive. The good news? You're in a metropolis of canals, temples, and markets, rivaling anything in Europe. The bad news? The gods demand blood, the nobles demand tribute, and the lake's always threatening to swallow your home. Your day begins in a one-room adobe house, its walls cool but damp, its flat roof leaking from last night's rain. Your bed is a petate, a woven reed mat on the dirt floor shared with your family and a stray cricket that's louder than a war drum. The blanket's a thin cotton cloak, stiff with sweat and smelling of maize. You wake to the splash of canoes in the canal outside and the distant chant of priests atop the Templo Mayor, already slicing hearts for Huitzilopochtli. The air's heavy with the scent of tortillas and the faint copper tang of sacrifice. You slip outside to a chinampa, your floating garden plot, to relieve yourself over the edge into the lake. Privacy's a myth. Your neighbors are poling by in canoes, and the kids are already splashing in the shallows. Waste feeds the lake or the crops, a cycle nobody questions. You wash with lake water, murky and flecked with algae, using a yucca root to scrub. Soaps for nobles, your skin's rough, dotted with mosquito bites and a rash from the humid air. Your hair's tied back, matted with dust, and you smell like maize, mud, and fish. Breakfast is a quick meal, eaten squatting by a clay brazier. You eat a tole, a maize porridge, hot and bland, maybe spiked with chili if the market was kind. On the side, a tortilla, slapped onto a comal and chewy with ash. You drink pulque, a fermented agave sap, sour and thick, or lake water that's safer boiled. Meat's rare, turkey or dog for festivals, when the priests share the leftovers. Vegetables are beans, squash, or amaranth greens, boiled into a mush that's more grit than flavor. Your kids chew tortillas, their small hands sticky as they beg for a cactus fruit. Dressing is simple. You pull on a loincloth and a cotton tunic, patched and faded, smelling of smoke and sweat. Women wear a huipil, a woven blouse and a skirt, equally worn. No underwear, just sandals of maguey fiber that shred on the stone paths. Your skin's a battlefield, sunburn, calluses, and an itch from the reeds you wove yesterday. Bathing's a daily dip in the canal, shared with fish and neighbors, no privacy, no shame. You smell like the lake, but so does everyone else. Work is your survival, and it's relentless. You're up with the sun, tending your chinampa, planting maize, beans, and chili in the rich mud. Your tools are wooden, digging sticks, hoes, baskets woven from reeds. You pull a canoe to market, trading surplus for obsidian or feathers. Women weave maguey fibers into cloth, paying tribute to nobles, while kids haul water or chase birds from the crops. The Tlatoani, the emperor, demands your harvest, and the priests demand your labor for temple repairs. A bad crop means debt. A bad omen means your heart on an altar. The weather's a fickle god. The rainy season floods the lake, swamping chinampas. The dry season cracks the earth, starving your crops. Humidity breeds fevers, and a storm can sink your canoe. Mosquitoes, heat stroke, or a slip into the lake, it's all just another day. Religion rules everything. The gods, Quetzalcoatl, Tlaloc, Huitzilopochtli, demand constant offerings. You pierce your tongue with a maguey spine, dripping blood onto a paper for the household shrine. The Templo Mayor looms, its steps stained red, and you pray your name stays off the sacrifice list. Superstition's your shadow. A comet means war. A sick child means divine wrath. You don't argue. You offer maize and bleed. Death's a neighbor. Life expectancy's about 40, dragged down by kids dying from diarrhea or smallpox, already spreading from distant European ships. A wound can fester, a fever can kill, and childbirth's a roll of the dice. Medicines, herbs, chants, and a priest who might cut you to release the illness. Funerals are quick. A cremation, a bundle of ashes buried under the floor, a prayer to Mictlan. No gravestones, just a whispered name. By night, you're back home, eating another tortilla, your hands sore, your tunic damp. You tell stories of Coyote and the feathered serpent, your kids giggling despite the day's grind. Life in Tenochtitlan's a fight, but you're tougher than the lake's mud. You plant, you weave, you live. So, when you turn on your
Mary Anning, 1799–1847. Before she was Mary Anning, the fossil hunter who cracked open Earth's ancient secrets, she was a girl born in 1799 in Lyme Regis, England, on a stormy coast that shaped her life. Her story isn't one of salons or scholarships, but of a woman who dug truth from stone in a world that dismissed her. In Victorian England's rigid hierarchy, Mary rewrote history with a hammer and chisel, and her finds still echo in museums. She grew up in poverty, one of 10 children, only 2 survived, in a damp cottage by the sea. Her father, a cabinet maker, taught her to hunt fossils in the cliffs of Lyme Regis, selling curios to tourists. When he died, Mary, just 11, took over, scouring the shore after storms, dodging landslides and tides. By 12, she unearthed an ichthyosaur skull, a sea dragon that stunned scientists. She taught herself geology, anatomy, and paleontology from borrowed books, her mind sharper than the scholars who bought her finds. Her discoveries, plesiosaurs, pterosaurs, fossil fish, rewrote science. She found the first complete plesiosaur in 1823, its long neck baffling experts. Her work reached London's elite, but as a working-class woman, she was barred from the Geological Society. Men like William Buckland took credit, publishing her finds while she scraped by, selling fossils for pennies. "The world has used me so unkindly," she wrote, yet she kept digging, sketching fossils with precision, dissecting squid to understand ancient belemnites. Life was harsh. She nearly died in a landslide that killed her dog, Trey. Poverty gnawed. Sometimes she ate only bread. Cancer struck in her 40s, and though locals raised funds, she died at 47, her name barely known. After her death, her finds shaped Darwin's theories, and her story inspired paleontology. Today, the Natural History Museum holds her fossils, and Lyme Regis honors her with statues. Tonight, when you marvel at a dinosaur or question the past, think of Mary, chipping stone under a cold sky, finding monsters in a world that ignored her. She didn't just dig, she uncovered time, one fossil at a time. The Nazca culture and bell hooks. The Nazca culture, circa 100 BCE, 800 CE. In the arid deserts of southern Peru, from 100 BCE to 800 CE, the Nazca culture etched their story into the earth. Known for the Nazca lines, massive geoglyphs of animals, humans, and shapes visible only from above, they were farmers, weavers, and artists who thrived in a land that offered little. Their story, told in lines and clay, is one of ingenuity, faith, and a mystery that still captivates. Their world was the Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on Earth. The Nazca built underground aqueducts, called puquios, to channel water from springs, growing maize, beans, and cotton in irrigated fields. Their pottery glowed with vibrant animals, jaguars, hummingbirds, whales, painted in red, black, and white. Their textiles, woven with intricate patterns, dressed the living and wrapped the dead. The Nazca lines, some stretching miles, were scraped into the desert, removing dark pebbles to reveal pale earth. Were they for gods, stars, or water rituals? We don't know. Imagine their life. Your home is an adobe hut, its walls baked by the sun, its roof palm fronds. You sleep on a reed mat, waking to the rustle of lizards and the scent of dust. Food is maize porridge, roasted guinea pig, or cactus fruit, eaten with chili. You chew coca leaves to dull hunger, your teeth stained by thirin. Tools are obsidian knives, wooden hoes, and looms for weaving. You etch lines in the desert, walking miles to form a spider or condor, guided by priests or stars. The village hums with chants, children laughing, and the clink of clay. Life was fragile. Droughts starved crops, earthquakes cracked aqueducts, and childbirth killed many. The Nazca buried their dead in bundles, with pots and cloth, often with trophy heads, skulls of enemies or kin, a ritual we don't fully grasp. Their lines, some aligned with solstices, suggest a faith tied to seasons and skies. They vanished around 800 CE, maybe from drought or invaders, leaving their geoglyphs to puzzle us. Their legacy is their art. The lines, seen best by modern planes, hint at a people who spoke to the heavens. Their pottery and textiles, preserved in dry tombs, glow in museums. The Nazca aren't just relics, they're a question, asking what we'd etch into the earth to be remembered. Bell Hooks, 1952-2021. Before she was Bell Hooks, the writer who redefined feminism, she was Gloria Jean Watkins, born in 1952 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, in the segregated South. Her story isn't one of quiet pens, but of a voice that challenged patriarchy, racism, and classism, urging love as revolution. In a world that divided, Bell Hooks built bridges, and her words still call us to justice.